Hey guys, so the scene that I want us to look at today was from the second Batman movie, The Dark Knight. It's the Joker interrogation scene, and the reason I want to look at this scene in particular is because I think it does a really good job of kind of demonstrating all the things that we were looking at in the readings this week. So to start out, I really wanted to talk about the use of shot, reverse shot that's kind of going on in this scene. So the use of shot reverse shot was described in one of the Every Frame a Painting episodes. It talks about kind of how shot reverse shot is used a lot in dialogue or conversational scenes because it takes a shot and then flips it to the other character and then flips it back. So it kind of this idea of like bringing us into conversation between two individuals. So here we see shot reverse shot between the Joker and Commissioner Gordon, but it's interesting because it's using a short lens, which kind of places the camera in between the two. And the use of short lens for a shot reverse shot scene in this example is really interesting because it's kind of strategically placed in between these two characters. So we as an audience kind of experience a psychological effect for ourselves, like kind of feeling that intimacy and also the discomfort and tension that's kind of monopolizing the scene with these two characters. The other thing I wanted to point out was the use of lighting that's kind of in the scene. As you can tell, it's super dark, super kind of gloomy. I think that participates to this sense of tension. However, all of a sudden, bam, there's this light that kind of comes in. I think lighting is one of the elements of cinematography, we as a class have explored in the past, but I think it's really important as a detail, kind of, how videos are shot intentionally, because usually when we have lighting, it's this idea of like dark being bad and light being good. However, in this sense, the scene starts off super dark, and that's supposed to kind of create this sense of tension and conflict. However, when the lights turn on, it's almost like this conflict is actually lit up and intensified. So, instead of kind of going from, tension to relief, it's almost as if the beginning scene with Commissioner Gordon was kind of the rising action, and as soon as the lights are turned on, we're turned on into the conflict with the Batman. And I think it's also interesting because once again we see the use of shot reverse shot kind of coming into play with this conversation between the Joker and Batman. However, what's interesting is that instead of seeing a short lens, we're actually experiencing the effects of a long lens. And it's a long lens because, as you can tell right now especially, we are seeing kind of the conversation from behind the backs of one of the other characters as they're talking to one another. And once again, this is kind of strategically used because it kind of creates this, again, psychological effect in the audience that, as it's like we're spying on the conversation. As before, we were part of the conversation, and now we still are part of the conversation, but in a very much backseat kind of way. And I think that's done very intentional because it kind of portrays this idea that, like, we as an audience have now lost control of the scene. And that contributes to this sense of conflict and the sense of tension, the sense of like rising conflict and uncomfortableness and intimacy that's kind of being played into the scene. We no longer have the control over what happens. The other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about and focus on is the use of actually setting in this. So it's very clear setting, it's an interrogation room, and it kind of asks this idea of this conversation like this, how it's one person on one side and one person on the other side of the table, and how eventually as the conflict and the tension rises, we see the Batman literally lift the Joker over the table. So instead of having this kind of like talking at one another, the two worlds are colliding. And I think that use of a table in a lit room where there's nothing really else in the scene other than that table is also, again, done very intentionally. And because, again, once again, it shows how, that's the only thing that matters. Right now in this scene, the only thing that matters is these two characters and the relationship between them and the conflict that's happening between them. And honestly, with all those reasons, like, that's kind of why I chose to do this in the first place. With our readings, we kind of explored this idea of, all the details of filmmaking and what kind of goes into the design of filmmaking. Things like the way a scene is shot, the setting of the scene, the lighting of these scenes. All of these things are very deliberate details, and I think that's what kind of strikes me about this scene and why I find it so important in our discussions about filmmaking and the video, is because nothing is done accidental. Everything we see in a film, everything we see online, even in a video, it's all done deliberately and very strategically to kind of invoke a response in the audience so that we're not only seeing what's happening, but we're being drawn into what's happening. And I think that's one of the most important things to remember.